Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Patti Brennan Show. Whether you have $20 or $20 million, this show is for those of you who want to protect, grow, and use your assets to live your very best lives. We're going to change things up a little bit today. You know, we've had the Ask Patti Brennan series and things of that nature, but we're going to do something different. We're going to change it up. We're going to call it Dear Patti. I'm going to say Dear Patti and Eric because joining me today is Eric Furman, our Chief Planning Officer. And I want you guys to know something really important about Eric and I. Eric has been with me for over 20 years. He drank the Kool-Aid way back when you weren't in the laundry room, Eric, but you were in the the second basement. And he has been with me. And what started out, interestingly, as kind of a mentoring relationship has really evolved into almost reverse mentoring. I learn as much from Eric as I think he learns from me. Case in point today, Eric led our planning lab. Once a month, we have a planning lab where we do a deep dive on a topic. And we go deep and figure out how we can apply this knowledge for our clients. It was Eric's idea. It's turned out to be one of the greatest things that we get to do to really include everybody in the firm because we've got so many people here and they're equally as curious. And by the way, they get questions too. So we empower everyone with the knowledge that you've learned, that I've learned, and we get to do these things, right?
Yeah, it's kind of amazing when you talk about 20 years ago. I sit there and I look in the mirror and I think, where does the time go?
Oh, you're a young buck. You're a young buck. I mean, I pride our team on our not just the diversity of typical gender and racial. We've got generational diversity. And I can't believe you're one of the senior people now, right?
Yeah, one of the gray-haired folks.
You got it. I've covered mine.
Not just figuratively.
Yes,
right?
Yes, exactly. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We get questions from listeners of this podcast all the time. They go on to our website, they go on LinkedIn, et cetera, and ask questions. And so we thought it might be interesting for you to hear what listeners are asking us and then answer the questions. Chances are you might be wondering about the same things. Today, we're going to focus on longevity, Eric, because that is a big deal. People think about retirement. We are recording this. I'm going to time and date stamp it. It is 4:54 on Monday, April 7th. And folks, we really are in the midst of a crisis. So, Eric, why don't you go ahead and pick out one of the questions and let's just figure this out.
Yeah, Patti, and I have to say, thanks for having me on the show. I always relish the opportunity to sit in here as your co-host on these shows. And they're kind of fun because, usually the boss is the one that gets to ask all the questions.
Right.
So
yeah,
I get to sit
put you on the spot,
yeah,
right?
Now you're the one on the hot seat, right? So this is going to be great. I'm really relishing the opportunity here, as you can tell. But I think, as I read through these, the thing that, really just kind of took my breath away as I read through this is that these are questions that are coming from listeners.
Yes.
And what I was so taken aback by that was so profound is that they're really tapping into the pulse of what you and I hear day in and day out in the conversations that we have with clients. The people out there share the same concerns, the same thoughts, the same ambitions and aspirations for the future, and the same worries.
Yes, exactly. Because you know what, Eric? Human nature is human nature, right? We all have this feeling like we want to make sure we're going to be okay and that we want to be making progress. And when curveballs like what's happening now come around, a lot of people don't know what to do, especially given the types of questions that they have about retirement. What should we be doing? Should we be doing anything different, et cetera?
It's actually funny. I just read a book called Am I Going to Be Okay just recently.
How about
by somebody
that one?
I know.
And is anyway, okay enough?
Yeah.
And what does
absolutely.
okay mean to you? That is really the question. What does okay mean to you?
But, I think that's the beauty about what you and I get to do every day, which is such a great privilege, which is we get to help people understand, that they're going to be okay and really personalize it for their needs.
And we have access to resources that not many people have. And I think our focus on longevity planning and improving people's quality of life in that during the retirement years, because it's not really one long life of leisure, right? People go through different phases. We know what those phases are. We know what to expect, and we are planning accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm excited. So why don't we
fire
dive into
away.
some of these questions?
Hopefully I'll know
but
the
I think what
answer.
you highlighted is so important, is that what we do here, this is a knowledge business, and it's just a constant process of learning and so forth. So why don't we kind of dive into some of these topics? So the first question here, Patti, says, Dear Patti, I'm 64, recently retired, and in good health. But I keep hearing that I might live into my 90s and beyond. That's a long time to plan for. How do I make sure my money and my lifestyle can keep up with me for potentially 30 plus years? So,
you know what?
What can you offer?
Great question. You know, really, retirement really isn't about the number of years. It's about complexity, understanding the phases, and building in resilience. That's what it's really all about. As we talk about, we run the numbers. We model different scenarios. What if this happens? What if that happens? Because we know things are going to happen. We kind of know what they are, too. So let's just kind of walk people through it, make sure they're still going to be okay, right? So I think the question in terms of how do you plan for a long life, I think tell me the Abe Lincoln quote that you were telling us before we started to film.
Oh, yes, yeah. So I'm going to paraphrase here,
Okay.
but
All right.
I think the saying goes something to the effect of, it's not the years in your life, but the life in your years, or something
Exactly.
to that effect.
It's
which
about
is
quality
important.
of life. Exactly. And as you know, I go up to MIT, every 3 months, and Dr. Joe wrote a book called The Longevity Economy, and he really did a great job of articulating the phases of retirement. What this person is in phase number 1, which is that phase of ambiguity. When people first retire, I tell them it's sort of like freshman year. You want to go nuts. No mom and dad, stay out all night, drink on Thursday nights, you name it, okay? That's the beginning stage of retirement, but then you get to day 253. You've kind of done the honey-do list, you've gone on vacation, et cetera. What are you going to do?
Yep.
Right? So that's basically what we want to focus on. Phase number 1, which this person is in, it's about money and meaning. What is my purpose? Nobody has to answer. I used to be a boss. Nobody is listening to me anymore. What is my identity? How do I recreate my paycheck? And those are all really important questions. And there's a way to do it.
The part that you started off with there, which is talking about, planning and running the numbers. Ultimately, I think so many people, and it's very easy even for us as professionals to be consumed by this kind of myopic view that the only risk is market risk, just the ups and downs of our portfolio. But, really the greatest risk that we're trying to address is longevity risk, right? And that's
the
what we
biggest
deal
risk
with,
because let's face it, it is the most expensive thing you're going to spend money on is retirement. I mean, even with our kids, college education, think about what we did. For what I did for my 4 kids. It's not just about saving the money for college. It's about the SAT prep. It's about the college visits. It's about the essays and what they're going to write. People prepare so much for their children's education. You got to do the same thing for the most expensive thing you're ever going to spend money on, which is your retirement.
Right.
Take the time, model things out, run the scenarios and the what ifs.
Right. Right. It's all about, ascertaining the likelihood of success, right?
And
at the end of the day.
you will be successful. Just understand and build some resilience so that you can get through things like we're going through right now with the tariffs.
Well, on to the next question here. So this next question is from a couple. And it says, Hi, Patti. My wife and I are starting to think about the long term. Things like caregiving, housing decisions, and staying connected as we age. What are the smart things we should be planning for now while we're still active and healthy?
It's a great question. And I love the way this question ended, Eric, because while you're still active and healthy, have fun, enjoy, okay? Just understand where the boundaries are, right? Go nuts, but be careful not to go too nuts and understand in advance where you're going to come up with the cash flow. It's not really about income, it's about cash flow because there's going to be incredible opportunities to enjoy every season of your retirement life. That's, to me, the most important thing.
Yeah. And I think, there it's that delicate balance that we're always dealing with, which is, clients come in and they've worked so hard all their life to accumulate a certain amount of money, and they want to enjoy it, and rightfully so. But where's the balance?
Yeah,
where they
exactly.
don't put themselves in jeopardy at a later stage in life.
It's interesting because in the prior question, we were talking about phase one, managing ambiguity. That's phase one. Phase two is making big decisions. People move as often after the age of 50. People move all the time. Housing decisions need to be made. You've gone through freshman year. You might say, okay, we've traveled, we've done the things we want to do. Do we want to move closer to the kids? Or do we want to become babysitters, 24/7? So these are really important decisions about Medicare and Social Security that we do. The modeling is so important. So making big decisions, really important. Then you get into that third phase, which is managing complexity. And I got to tell you, that's a really important phase because, Eric, people want to simplify. As people get on in the years, and this person sounds like they, want to have the quality of life. They don't want overly complicated wills and trusts and tax returns, and they want to keep it simple. They want to have a go-to person that already knows everything about them, which is actually quite wise, because in this phase, those cognitive synapses are often not firing off the way they used to, and they want to begin to delegate certain important areas of their life. It's probably smart. Because the last phase, as we know, is that phase where in a two-person household, the last phase is living solo. We do it all the time. We sit at that conference table.
It's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking because, I tell people there will be a point in time when we're sitting at the conference table with one of you. That's when it really matters. Because in that phase, the survivor goes back to phase one, managing ambiguity, making big decisions, managing complexity. And it's so nice when they don't have to retell their story to somebody they don't even know. We already know everything.
Right.
So it's really neat to be able to have a seamless retirement. That's quality of life.
Yeah. And really the importance there, I think, that you highlight is the ability to kind of work with somebody that understands the different seasons of life. And that's your term, by the way. I use it all the time.
Yeah, I
love
know.
it. But really to understand that there are seasons of life and there's different things that you plan for in those seasons. Some of them are financial and others are non-financial. They're more about quality of life and what brings meaning.
I'm a nurse. I'm a former nurse, ICU nurse. It's about health. Health and wealth go hand in hand, right? And they're both really important. It's not just about a pie chart. I'm not about the pie chart only. People talk about their portfolio, et cetera. Fine and dandy. I think that is really misguided. I think what we focus on and what I appreciate about these questions is that it gives listeners the opportunity to understand it's not just about your money. It's about the quality of your life and living the life that you want to live, where you want to live, doing the things that you want to do. And that's not, this is probably it's not BS. We're running the numbers. We're doing the work. We got to make sure.
Yeah,
it's a stewardship, Well,
I'll tell you what, that was a beautiful segue to the next question, which is as follows. Dear Patti, I've saved enough to retire comfortably, but what worries me the most isn't money, it's staying relevant, connected, and healthy as I get older. So how do your clients approach this phase of life so they're not just living longer, but they're living better? And I think that's a perfect, that last question really teed this one up beautifully.
That is what we're all about. I've been talking for years about updating our website to include a tab that basically is Vitality Hub. Because when people retire, they're not going to want to watch TV all day long, right? You want to be out there. And, as I talked about with the previous question, we do the Social Security, analysis and things of that nature. But in this phase, I think we also want to focus on a different kind of Social Security. The kind of security that we feel when we're around people who we've gone through tough times with, our friends. And unfortunately, at some point, the world gets really small. And so maintaining those relationships, that social security is really important. And there are things that people can and probably might want to consider things like meetups, right? You know, that's an easy one where you can think about the things that you like to do. You could be into wines. Go to a meetup that's all about different types of wines, or go to a meetup about hiking, or go to a meetup about teaching kids about money. Whatever it might be, whatever you're interested in, there are other people who are interested in those things. And you just Google meetup and you find people in your area who have interests similar to your own.
You know, I feel like what you're capturing there, really the essence of what's important, is that, you know, a lot of people and all of our clients have a financial plan for retirement, but what some people are missing is a plan for how to live in retirement.
Well, that's exactly right. You know what? It's sort of like my vision for this, Eric, is this. And we're not there yet, folks, but we're going to get there.
Right.
I promise you. My vision is kind of like those vacation clubs, right? Where there's a company that's already curated a whole bunch of different types of vacations, right? And you join the club and you figure out where you want to go. And the people that go on these vacations are often the same people. So you're kind of reconnecting with people that you've gone on vacation with before.
Like
and they're smaller groups. You know what? Yeah, that's it. I mean, I just think that to enhance life, you want to belong to something, right? We all need our tribes, and you want to feel like you have purpose. And there are wonderful organizations out there. You know, I keep on telling my husband, go out and volunteer, go to the hospital. I'm on the board. They need people. He's like, oh, I don't want to do that. Old people do that. Well, guess what, pal? You're old. Do it, right? I probably shouldn't say that, but it is what I told him. So
a moment of honesty, I guess.
A moment.
Right? Yeah.
And you know what? Okay, so we have clients who've done SCORE. SCORE's a great organization, right? So this one client, we just had a call last week with him, and he volunteers for SCORE, and he gets to parlay his wisdom, you know, and share his experience as a financial controller of a company. And small businesses need that information. It's volunteer, and he loves it. And he gets to mentor these business owners and develop those relationships and really feel like he's giving back. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. So are you ready for the bonus round?
Bonus, okay.
All right, here it
what's
comes.
the bonus?
So this is a bonus question, but a rarely asked question.
Okay.
So here it is. Patti, I've been hearing more about alternative wellness and even longevity biohacks. So I'm very curious about those. Are these just trends, or do you think things like functional medicine and interval walking or micronutrient awareness really matter for retirement planning?
Wow, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I love this question because, again, this is where having the resources that I have really comes into play. The relationship I have with Dr. Joe at MIT really comes into play. So let me give full credit to the MIT Age Lab for any of you advisors who are out there and people in companies in the financial industry. You got to learn about the MIT Age Lab. Talk about a wealth of information that you can use to help your clients. This is where my ideas are coming from. So number one, did you know, again, this is a former nurse, you know, you think about health and wealth. And Eric, we know the sooner we discover an issue, we run the numbers, and if all of a sudden people aren't tracking well, we have something called radar. And radar, we get alerts, and then we get alarms. The sooner we uncover an issue, the easier it is to fix. The same thing is with health. Did you know that there is a toilet that when we do our business in the toilet, it does like a urine analysis. It determines if there's glucose, protein, anything that somebody should be aware of, and it detects it very early. And there are two companies in particular that have these kind of things that are out there, whether it be number one, number two.
I'm just thinking my 12 and 8-year-old might have a little too much fun with that.
Yeah. So then, exactly. So then they would have, but you know what?
To designate a special bathroom where they can't get into it. Yeah.
This is a biohack, right? So they're called smart toilets. Toto Wellness Toilet is one company that's into this. It's these are in the concept stage, but they're out there. The other company is called Withings U-Scan, which is also in development to catch silent problems before you ever have symptoms. So that's a biohack. There are smart carpets. For example, unfortunately, we heard about Gene Hackman and his wife, right? His wife succumbed to a viral illness. She fell and she died. If they had one of these smart floors or smart carpets, if she didn't answer her phone, an ambulance was, the police would have come to their home. They would have seen poor Gene Hackman at 95 years old with end-stage Alzheimer's roaming around, and they would have been able to give him help. And they would have been able to get the dog out of the cage. But unfortunately, both Gene Hackman and the dog succumbed and died.
Yeah, what a crazy sequence of events that was.
It's awful.
That.
These things are out there. They are just around the corner. So there are things that we can look forward to. We've also got the wearables, right? I've got an iWatch. I will tell you, full disclosure, I got T-boned about a month ago. And it said, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" And of course, I could say, "No, I'm okay." I was able to get out of the car. I was perfectly fine. Sometimes, as you know, I use my hands a lot. I will slap my hand on a desk for emphasis, and all of a sudden I get an alert. Are you okay? Do you need help? And then I can say, "I'm okay." But if I'm not, or if I don't answer, then help is called. I've got my emergency contact numbers. 4 people are going to get a text and a phone call from Apple. It's a beautiful thing. So that's another idea. Wearable health monitors. Apple Watch, Fitbit has one, and Q-Medic is another company. It's basically early detection, peace of mind.
Yeah, it's just amazing to think about all the technology that's already out there and is going to be coming down the line in the future here.
We've even got, think about Alexa. "Hey, Alexa, I fell. Call somebody," right? Voice activated systems that you can call out to. If you don't have one, you should probably consider getting one, especially if you live alone.
Yeah, I think, as we look forward with all these innovations, the future is going to be an amazing place for people as they retire.
It's getting better and better. I often talk about loneliness, people living alone, right? Loneliness, isolation is the equivalent, according to Dr. Joe in Harvard, it is the equivalent of smoking 9 cigarettes a day. It's not good for your health. So they're coming out with these wonderful companions. They are AI companions and social robots. They offer, basically reminders, conversation, etc. LQ is one company. There was another company that came out with something, but theirs is not quite working the way that they had hoped. Dr. Joe was telling us about a company. It was a seal that was basically an AI companion, and it had the special fur, and the lab, they did all this research, what makes people feel more comforted. It's amazing. I think I forget that Paro, I think, is the name of the seal.
Okay, gotcha.
And you just talk to Paro, and you pet him, and it's like having a dog without all the other stuff.
It tells you nice things.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Reminds you to take your meds, all that. Medication reminders is a big area also. That's also a hack. I forget what the names. iHealth is one. Livongo is another one. And Care Predict. They are basically monitoring devices. And the medication reminders are MedMinder, Priya by Black & Decker, and Hero. Okay, everybody wants a hero. Tell me when I need to take my meds.
Yeah, there you go.
You're my hero.
Well, I'll tell you what, this was action-packed and full of great things. So I think, folks, that wraps it up for today's Dear Patti segment. I want to thank all of you for tuning in and for our listeners submitting these great questions that we were able to answer for today. If any of you out there have financial questions that are keeping you up at night or just topics that you'd like to hear, please, by all means, feel free to email us at dearpatti@keyfinancialinc.com. Put Dear Patti in the subject line. We'd love to field your questions, and hopefully we'll be able to introduce them on a future show.
I want to name it Dear Eric and Patti. Remember the reverse mentoring. We learn from you as much as you learned from me. And don't forget, they can also go on LinkedIn. You can do a direct message. By the way, all of this is anonymous. You're not submitting your name. This is really to provide, hopefully, valuable information and answer questions. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you have a great day and live a long life with great quality. Take care.